Welcome back, my friends, to a trip that never ends. Welcome back, my friends. Step inside, inside.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adrian from the Peace Genesis Project.
I'm Josh from the Josh Project.
Josh is the channel for SOTU, a non-physical consciousness we've been working with a long time, and you're about to meet SOTU.
Woo woo.
It's woo-woo, but you can decide for yourself whether you think it's real or not.
So, I'm going to channel now. So, I don't, not much ceremony here. So, here we go. All right. Well. Good morning, everyone. Is it still morning? Oh, yes, barely. So, what can we do for you today?
Well, when we last spoke, you were talking about the divine imperative that is affecting
It's affecting everything, wouldn't you think? It's
everything.
everywhere in your world right now.
And it seems to be, as you say, everywhere. And I was wondering if you would discuss it in light of the
Mm,
increasing violence and assassination, etc. What is the
yeah.
reflection for us?
The reflection is, who are you going to be? How much of the dynamics of the reflection of your reality are going to have to shock you in order to put you into a certain dynamic of understanding that you are all being challenged around the dynamics of who you're going to be? Are you going to wind up being like the Atlanteans who basically destroyed their civilization, their dynamic of their world by losing sight of the sacred in the midst of the technological? Are you going to do much the same things? It seems like that's the energetic dynamic that's going on in your world right now, doesn't it?
Well,
That
that's
it's,
one of them.
well, it's a primary one. You are being asked, each and every one of you, to reclaim a dynamic of spirit, to look inside yourself, to what shall we say? Find that spark of the divine, find that spark of God, so that you might develop an individual relationship and realize that you are divine beings manifested in physical bodies. As you claim that dynamic, then you become more compassionate, more caring, and more connected. Your world begins to reflect a dynamic of change that comes from cooperation rather than competition. And so, basically, it's a dynamic that's basically asking you to, yes, go ahead, move forward, have technology, have all of those things, but do not forget that you are divine beings manifested in physical bodies, because it's that disconnection that, what shall we say, leads to the dissonant energy.
So that's why many are saying now to spend time in nature as a way to
As a
reconnect.
way, but that's usually only a stopgap measure. The dynamic ultimately is that there's so many of you are polarized. Can you move out of your polarized positions? Can you realize that everyone, including the ones with rings in their nose and pokes in their faces and tattoos all over their bodies, and the dynamics of believing that there is more than two genders, and yeah, we're going to get in trouble today. But it's like you can have that dynamic of that belief, but that's not a consensus belief. It's not something that's actually real. And as long as you keep it to yourself and don't try to impose the dynamics on other people, then you're not going to have the friction. But it's in the imposition of your way or the highway that creates these energetic dynamics. Now, this is not something that began overnight. It began a decade ago, decades ago, let us say. And so what you are achieving is a dynamic of your realizing it's a culmination of thoughts, words, and feelings. You know, how many times can you think that someone is stupid before you begin to treat them that way? How many times do you call someone a Nazi before someone,
Treats them
starts
that
to
way.
begin to treat you that way? Again, there's that whole dynamic of thought, word, and feeling, repetition, repetition, repetition. That's what leads to a certain dynamic of brainwashing, a certain dynamic of lack of discernment, lack of objectivity, and that's where you are right now in your world. You know, if you're going to take one polarized position or the other, and we understand the threat to those of you out there of fundamental Christianity. And we understand the threat that evangelicals pose to you, because it brings you back up to that dynamic of where you must look within yourself one way or the other. You're not, if you do not believe in the dynamics of the Bible, well, maybe you believe in the Hindu dynamic or the Buddhist dynamic or the Muslim dynamic. It doesn't really matter. Most of you, in your own way, believe that there is an energy that's more than you are, and even if you don't, there is a certain dynamic of moral behavior, a moral compass that you all have. Now, it's whether you ignore that moral compass or not, and that's what tends to be happening more and more in your world as you are. Now, what does evangelical Christianity, what does fundamentalist anything provide except for a framework? So the old ways, the old religions are gave you frameworks for developing a relationship with the divine. But now, the thing that is common, that spark of the divine is within each and every one of you. And as you begin to recognize that within yourself, you can begin to recognize that in other people, and therefore begin to move more toward a unified expression of humanity.
Yes, and I've even heard it said that there's a belief out there that maybe came out of the spiritualism from the 1900s that some people don't have souls. Would you comment on that?
Well, everyone has some sort of connection to the divine, even if they do not have a developed soul. There are people in your world right now that are, what shall we say, of a more base level of growth, of understanding, of consciousness that is much more simplistic in that sort of dynamic. Those of you that have been involved in metaphysics for many years, knows that there are lifetimes where your higher self, where your soul doesn't pay a lot of attention to you because you're not paying a lot of attention to the dynamics of your reality. So, does that answer your question?
It does. It does. And I've had the opportunity to be in group with people who are on opposing sides, let's say politically here, and doing my best to bring some place of
There's
commonality.
only a third position. There are truth and there are lies in both aspects. If you find out people are arguing about something, they're usually arguing about something that they have taken a soundbite of information from something that has a lot more context to it than is being presented. And so instead of, people argue in sound bites rather than in actual facts.
And that seemed to be part of the power of Mr. Kirk, who was just assassinated, was that he brought
We're not getting into that.
facts.
You create your own reality. And the dynamics of Charlie Kirk, where, there are some people in your world that are in only for a certain period of time and have a certain impact. And so he has had that sort of impact. And the question is now, what are you all going to do with it?
Well, and it is a perhaps
No, no opinions.
Well, okay. Um, and it took martyrhood to bring that about.
Well, here you have it again. So it brought a dynamic of martyrhood again, fundamental or evangelical, fundamental Christianity in that sort of way. What's going to be what shall we say, the energetic template, except for martyrhood.
So,
You create your reality. If you choose to create it within a certain dynamic of a parameters of belief, then do not be surprised when those reflections manifest.
yes. All right. Thank you.
Well, you're done.
Well, I
Okay.
had a few, um, but you've touched on a number of the concerns about the concept that many of us have been brainwashed in one way or another. And now by having the opportunity to
Well, every
question it
time, every time you hit something like this, it is an opportunity to step out of the brainwashing for all sides.
for all sides,
The question that you all need to ask yourself around the Charlie Kirk thing is how did you respond to it? Did you respond to it with sadness or did you respond to it with glee? If you responded to it with glee, then you really need to question your own moral compass, whether you agreed with him or not. All right, we love you all so very, very much. And so until the next time, we close. And if you've got any questions about this one, we're perfectly willing to argue about it. All right,
put
until
in the
next time,
comments.
we close.